Ouais, sur les réseaux sociaux, il n'y a pas longtemps, ben, je pense même que c'est aujourd'hui, tu as posté que tu pouvais pas être anti-raciste sans être anti-capitaliste.
Oh, ouais.
Qu'est-ce que tu veux dire par ça? Moi, je le suis pas, mais ben, en fait, je sais pas ce que je suis, mais...
Ben moi, récemment, tu sais, avec... j'ai Angela Davis ici. Récemment, j'ai essayé de m'éduquer plus un peu sur le sujet du socialisme, puis du communisme, puis tout ça. Tu sais, je suis pas vraiment un communiste, parce que, genre, à la fin de la journée, tous les régimes communistes qu'on a vécu dans l'histoire, c'était des régimes, genre, total et autoritaires. Puis c'est pas vraiment ça que on veut.
C'est ce genre de communiste que tu veux.
Ouais, c'est ça, parce que comme ce genre de communiste-là, ça enlève totalement la liberté individuelle.
Mm-hmm.
Puis nous, on veut genre un système, nous, comme j'imagine le peuple, veulent un système économique qui peut soutenir tout le monde, en même temps avoir genre un système sociopolitique qui peut soutenir genre leur liberté d'expression, leur liberté religieuse, raciale, etc.
Dans le fond, quand tu parles de communiste, tu veux vraiment l'égalité, vraiment, puis non genre une autorité suprême.
C'est ça. Fait que, tu sais, si tu regardes, genre, surtout aux États-Unis, mais ça s'applique aussi au Canada, les instituts derrière le capitalisme, tu vas voir que, genre, c'est tellement comme... Ben, it's comme, like you trace it back to, like, let's say, slavery, where, like, the main economic point of the United States was, was off of exploiting other people. And then when slavery was abolished, they found a way with the 13th Amendment, which said that slavery is abolished to everyone except people that have committed crimes. So they found ways to like jail black people for like the pettiest crimes ever, like jaywalking or like stealing like the least amount of stuff, and they would give them like extreme sentences, and they would like force them to work prison labor, which is still a thing today. Prison labor is still a thing today. So that's why like slavery isn't totally abolished in the United States, because it's still like backed up by capitalistic institutions. And then you look at slave and prison labor, you look at how these affect the cost of living, like Starbucks, Target, all these like corporations. The reason why their products are like cheaper, it's because they profit off slave labor and prison labor. And another factor is that we saw in like with the Great Depression and before that, we had so many like economical recessions just with capitalism that the only way that we could sustain a system like that was to exploit other countries and exploit the workers of other countries, because their workers like costed it a lot less. So you had a wave of neoliberalism in la mondialisation, que ça a rendu que genre toutes ces corporations genre ils partent des États-Unis, fait que déjà, genre, t'as moins d'emplois, puis ils partent à, genre, tu sais, en Chine ou en Bangladesh, ou tout ça, where the cost of labor and the cost of resources is so much cheaper. So that's why the price of living right now is, like, not as expensive, because we're, like, all the clothes you're buying, the food you're buying and all that, it's, like, being profited off someone. And then you look at these institutions again, especially prisons. Prisons in the United States are funded by corporations. They're funded by like Walmart and Target and all that. They put money into like the prison industrial system, so that like the more people they jail, the more like taxes comes towards them, and then like these corporations are gonna make profit off of that. So like they're literally making money off of like the life of prisoners that probably didn't do anything. And you look at that, you look at how the war on drugs affected black people and people of color in the United States, where like black people don't have airplanes. Like there's like in that time, there's no way they could have like extracted all that cocaine from Colombia and put it into their hoods. Like, it was implanted in there just so that they find reasons to arrest all these people and make them work and make them the the cost profit
like your
of
hypothesis.
That's not a hypothesis.
True?
That's real life.
Oh, okay.
That's exactly what happened. You can look up. You can read the new Jim Crow, or there's a documentary that I'm not explaining it well, but there's a documentary that explains it much more. It's called The 13th. It's on Netflix by Eva DuVernay. It's being explained by sociologists and by critical thinkers much more experienced than I am. Like I'm just a guy that is interested in that subject. So again, like, tu sais, puis après t'as comme like the same institutions you'd look at, for example, in the 30s, the 40s, and in that era where the segregation happened, and banks, they had this thing called redlining, where they would separate, say, like black communities and white communities. So they would like draw a red line over like segregated black communities, and when someone from that community would come to take a loan, they would deny it because, you know, he hasn't like reached a certain capita, and generationally they keep denying it. So at the end of the day, there's not as much money that goes into funding those communities, the infrastructures, the roads, the hospitals, the education, and the way that these infrastructures are funded in the first place is by like district profit or something. So all these white neighborhoods that make so much money, the government is going to look at it, and they're going to look at the receipt at the end of the year, and they're going to like put as much money into funding them back. But the black communities that don't make as much money, less money will go towards them. So they're stuck in this vicious cycle of like poor funding. And that's all the subject of capitalism. So even though we have like, even if it's not gonna happen, but probably not gonna happen, but even if we get those like big social reforms on capitalism, it still will be based on exploiting and dehumanizing and marginalizing people of color, black people, poor people, etc. So that's why like you can't be anti-racist without being anti-capitalist, because capitalism is built on imperialism and colonialism and all those aspects.
T'as tout compris ça?
Oui, j'ai compris.
C'est bon, ça. Je suis fier de toi, man.